Hello and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Legion video. Today marks the first in a series of blog posts detailing the class changes in Legion. Hunters are being majorly overhauled, and I'm going to start off this video by jumping straight into Survival, which is essentially a brand new spec. So Survival is a melee spec that uses a spear. It's pretty much brand new, and it's the only hunter spec that's going to be using traps. Other specs will be using different forms of CC. Overall, their gameplay is that they snare and bleed enemies while fighting in melee range with Pet. Focus regeneration is passive, so they do not have a generator ability. Now I'm going to go over the abilities that Blizzard released. Harpoon is your movement spell. It's usable from 5 to 40 yards, and it pulls you towards your target, rotating them for 3 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. That'll be pretty cool for PvP. Anyway, once you get into combat, Raptor Strike is your filler ability. It costs 20 focus and it does physical damage in melee. Laceration is your dot. It's got a 10-second cooldown and it does damage over 12 seconds. Mongoose Bite is a more involved ability, so you've got 3 charges of it and each charge takes 10 seconds to recharge. Now this does heavy damage, but each consecutive Mongoose Bite within 3.5 seconds will deal 50% increased damage, stacking up to 6 times. So as you can see, it's really the main ability of this spec. Now your mastery ties into that. It's called Hunting Companion, and it causes your pet's attacks to have a 20% chance to give your Mongoose Bite an extra charge, which means of course you can use it again. On top of that, you have Flanking Strike, which costs 20 focus, has a 25-yard range, and commands your pet to instantly attack the target. Wing Clip is your slow. It slows the target by 50% for 15 seconds. And they've also revealed a SV-specific talent called Snake Hunter. On a 1-minute cooldown, it can grant you 3 charges of Mongoose Bite. So overall, what does this equate to? Well, the gameplay is going to involve using Mongoose Bite as efficiently as possible, while maintaining uptime on Laceration using Flanking Strike on cooldown. Mongoose Bite is very interesting in its usage. 3.5 seconds isn't a crazy long amount of time, so you probably will want to wait as long as you can, i.e. 3 seconds, before reusing it in order to maximize your chances of getting free charges via the mastery. By default, you're going to be able to reach 3 or 4 stacks quite easily, and past that it's a matter of RNG and good management. This design allows you to mash it 3 times in a row for very short-term burst DPS, or to spread it out and hopefully keep that chain going for longer in order to get higher sustained damage. The addition of the Snake Hunter talent means you'll be able to do 3 Mongoose Bites, then activate Snake Hunter, do 3 more, and then based on RNG, you'll be able to pace out your additional Mongoose Bites to get even more strikes while at a full 6 stacks of the buff. So I like what they've got going on here. I've maybe got a slight concern that this is going to be very UI and buff watch focused, but overall, I think it's good. Now that is a bit odd since they seem to be trying to cut down and stuff like that with warriors and mages, but personally I do think this looks quite fun. There's also a good skill element in how your reactions to Mongoose Bite are probably going to eke out a good amount of extra DPS. Next we have Marksmanship, which is a petless ranged DPS spec. Focus is different from them in that it's now gained via Arcane Shot. Also, elements of the old Survival spec are going to be available through Marksmanship's talents. So Arcane Shot is a 40 yards range shot that does moderate damage and generates 5 focus. And it works with a passive called Seek Vulnerabilities that's going to cause targets hit by Arcane Shot or Multi-Shot to have Hunter's Mark for 6 seconds. Now this Hunter's Mark interacts with a new ability called Marked Shot. This costs 30 focus and has a 40-yard range, and it's a channeled ability. It fires a shot at up to 3 targets who have Hunter's Mark applied to them, and it does strong damage but also applies a debuff to targets that snares them by 15% and increases the damage they take from aimed shot by 25%. It lasts 10 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. And then on top of that, we've got Aimed Shot. This costs 50 focus, has a 40-yard range, and does very high damage, especially when paired with the debuff from Marked Shot. Their mastery causes crit and range to be increased, and that should work out about 12.5% increase for your typical gear. Lock and Load is actually going to be a talent, so it will cause your aimed shots to do fire damage to enemies within 4 yards, and on top of that, auto attacks will have a 5% chance to trigger Lock and Load, which causes your next 2 shots of aimed shot to be free and instant. Oh boy, this is quite the change. So, from a single target perspective, you'll be building up your focus by spamming the hell out of Arcane Shot. After that, you'll want to build up your 3 mark shots on a target, and then after that, you're going to want to dump, Arcane Shots to get some focus back, and then aimed shots. Now, because Arcane Shot gives Hunter's Mark on a target, if you're single targeting, your target will always have Hunter's Mark on it. So essentially, this spec is going to turn into a game of weaving your marked shots and your aimed shots, such that you always have 3 stacks of marked shot, and you're doing your aimed shots when marked shot is at 3 stacks. That seems like pretty decent gameplay overall. Again, it's quite a lot of looking at buffs and things like that. Of course, lock and load works out quite well with this, because ideally when lock and load procs, you want to get up to 3 stacks of the marked shot buff, then to blast your 2 lock and loaded aim shots at the target. I think this is going to work out to be pretty fun. As I said, a lot of buff tracking and things, but I think the gameplay will slink into a position where you're spamming off a lot of arcane shots for regen, and then you are weaving in your aimed shots and your marked shots. Could be quite good, but again, I'm going to need to play this one on the betas just to see how it feels. And then finally, we've got Beast Mastery. They were mostly happy with this spec, but they wanted to shift some of the gameplay onto your pet a good bit more. This has resulted in Dire Beast becoming a core part of the rotation that actually generates focus. So Cobra Shot is now different. It appears to be a filler spell, costing 40 focus and doing moderate damage. Dire Beast will summon a pet to attack your target for 8 seconds. Now when the pet does damage, you're going to gain 4 focus, and Dire Beast is on a 10-second cooldown. It will also reduce the cooldown of your Bestial Wrath by 15 seconds when you use it, which means that Bestial Wrath should be pretty darn regular. Kill Command costs 20 focus, and it's got a 6-second cooldown, and it, as normal, just causes your pet to do super strong damage against the target. You've also got a passive which causes critical strikes to have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Dire Beast. So if you're doing a lot of crits, then you might actually have multiple Dire Beasts up. Their mastery with typical gear will increase pet damage by 45%. Oh wow, so one of the talents as well is Wave the Cobra. This will increase your Cobra Shot damage by 5% for every pet or guardian that is active. So if you, say, have 2 Dire Beasts active because your mastery is procced and your pet active, then Cobra Shots will be doing 15% more damage, which might mean that they are a little bit more worthwhile in terms of your priority list. What does this all mean for gameplay though? Well, you're going to be using Dire Beast on cooldown in order to generate focus and decrease the cooldown of Bestial Wrath. Assuming it stays the same, you will want to fit 2 kill commands inside a single Bestial Wrath. And this is going to occur a lot because of Dire Beast's effect on the Bestial Wrath cooldown. In between that, I assume you're just going to be burning off your excess focus on Cobra Shots. This change of gameplay is actually quite large here, because if you spam 100% the hell out of Cobra Shot, you're going to be focus starved for your Bestial Wraths. You don't have a 100% uptime focus generator like the old Cobra Shot. Focus is now a bit more passively generated via the pets that are summoned in with Dire Beast. I think this might lead to a slower version of the current BM with an emphasis of managing your focus and ensuring you do your Bestial Wraths correctly. I'm not sure how this will play, honestly. Our abilities are a 10-second cooldown that generates focus, a 6-second spender, and then, of course, your instant thing in terms of Cobra Shot. It seems like there might be a good bit of downtime or just waiting here. Overall, I'm going to need to play this to see how it feels, though I'm not instantly blown away. And that's pretty much a look at Hunters, so I'm maybe not the happiest about Beast Mastery, but the other two sound very interesting to me. Across all these 3 specs, I think what we do see, though, is diversity. They are completely different in terms of, at least on paper, how I think they're going to feel with the gameplay. That's absolutely brilliant. Right now, Hunters have all felt very samey, and because they've had those shared talents, that's just meant that all the specs have been kind of homogenized together. Well, in Legion, with the talents being split by spec a little bit more, I think we're going to see a lot more variety here. Overall, I am decently happy. I think Hunters were pretty hard done by in terms of game design in Warlords of Draenor. They planned a revamp, but basically just weren't able to make it happen, so they delayed it to Legion, and that's why we're seeing some really massive changes here. I'm cautiously optimistic. We're going to have to wait till the beta to actually play it. The beta should be in the coming few weeks, so that will probably come out sooner rather than later. Anyway, if you're a hunter, let me know what you think down in the comments, and if you're not a hunter, do changes like this make you want to play Hunter more? Thank you very much for watching the video. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to discuss it more, and I will see you next time.